Good afternoon, everyone. Today I am going to give brief introduction about the renewable energy resources. In that, although we know there are lots of renewable energy resources available in the available from the nature, but today I am going to talk about the solar energy, tidal energy, MHD, that is magneto hydrodynamic energy, and the fuel cell only. And after the introduction, I will give the merits and demerits of all these four types of renewable energy. So, first of all, starting with the solar energy, as we know that the solar energy is available in abundant in nature, right? And we get the solar energy from the sun. So, this is a very clean source of energy or pollution free, which is available abundantly. So, the total energy radiated from the sun is vast, as we know, right? And but only a small fraction of it get incidented on the outside atmosphere of the earth. About 30% of the solar energy, the sun rays, are reflected back to the outer space, right? In the short wave radiation, almost 47% of the is directly converted into heat, that is also lost in the outer space in the long wave radiation. And the major portion of the rest of the solar energy, that is the 23% of the energy, will cause the evaporation, precipitation, and the circulation of the water in the hydrologic cycle of the earth, right? Basically, we know that the sun radiates energy in almost all the direction of the universe, right? So, sunlight received during the day hours, we know, not in the night hours, right? And it is abundantly available when the sky is clear, right? So, the power density of the solar energy when the sky is clear is around 0.5% kilowatt per meter square, and 1 kilowatt per meter square, right? And also the solar energy varies with respect to the season, with respect to the geographical location, and with respect to the day and the night, and with respect to the season. If it is a rainy season, then solar energy is not available at all, right? So, we can trap the solar energy with the help of these solar panels, right? But it requires large space, though there is nothing required to store the solar energy. For example, we can just place the solar cooker in the induction on the induction gas in the sunlight to cook the food. So, no need to maintenance of the equipment is not required, right? Just there is no requirement for the serious attention when we are using the solar energy, right? So, these are the merits and the demerits of the solar energy. So, basically we know that this is the noiseless operation. No noise is produced when we are using the solar energy, right? It requires the very less space on floor, as there is no storage vessels. As I have told you that the solar energy can be trapped using the solar panels, and they can be mounted on the rooftop of the industries and the floor and the houses, and etc., right? So, very less space is required, but the initial cost is very cheap, and there is no need of the containers, right? Just like the fuels, we need the containers to store those fuels, but in case of solar energy, no containers are required. We can easily trap the solar energy using the solar panels in the daytime, and we can use it in the during the night, right? And during the rainy season as well. Now, in most of the equipment, the maintenance cost is very low, almost negligible, right? And in most of the equipment, no serious attention is required, as I've told. Just like the example, when we cook the food in the using the sunlight, only we need to either put the cooker in the induction, or we need to put the food in the solar cooker, and there is no attention required, so food will be cooked itself, right? But there are, as the coin has two sides, so along with the advantages of the solar energy, there are also some disadvantages of the solar energy. First of all, the solar equipments are failed during the night, during the cloudy season or the rainy season, right? No solar energy is available to us during these days, right? And second one is, if we want to collect the solar energy on a very large scale, right? So we need to mount large number of panels on a very large space, so we can get a sufficient amount of energy, solar energy. So large space is required for the collection of solar energy if we want to use it at a useful rate. Now coming to the tidal energy. See, tidal energy exploits the movement of the water which is caused by the tidal currents, or you can say the rise and the fall in the sea levels due to these tides only. Although these tidal energy is not being used widely, but for future it has a wide potential, right? We can use the tidal energy for the generation of the electricity, right? And it is more predictable than the wind energy and the solar energy, right? So the technology required to harness the tidal energy is well established, although it remains expensive, and relatively very few applications, almost around 40 around the worldwide, are available. So this is very used very less places, right? Not in we are not using tidal energy as much, right? Because ocean tides are produced by the gravitational forces of the sun and the moon, and there are only few sites available where we can generate the tidal energy because of these gravitational forces of the sun and the moon, right? And so very less at very less sites we can harness the tidal energy and we can produce the electricity. So the Bay of Fundy in Canada is having around 17 to 18 meter high tides, right, which has a potential to produce almost 5,000 megawatt of the electricity, right? In India, we have only 3 places, that is the Gulf of Cambay, Gulf of Kutch and the Sundarban deltas, where we are having the tidal power sites, where we can use the tidal power to generate the electricity. So this is the, I have shown, this is the picture to how we can use the tidal energy, how we can use the high tides and the low tides from the oceans to generate the electricity, right? So the advantages and the disadvantages of the tidal energy. So for the tidal energy, again, there are very less areas because there are no bays, there are on the bays, right? So very less area is required. Also, it is free from the pollution, right? As again, it is not using any kind of fuel, right? Although this tidal energy is superior to the hydropower plant because it is totally dependent upon the rain, right? And this rain is fluctuating year to year, right? So it is much superior as compared to the hydropower plant, right? It does not produce any unhealthy waste, just like gases, ashes or refuse, right? So it is better than the hydropower plant. And the tidal energy, tidal power has a unique capacity to meet the peak power demand effectively when it works in combination with the thermal as well as the hydro system, right? So the demerits of the tidal are, the tidal power plants can be developed only if natural sites are available, which is very less, right? So it is a big problem where we can use these tidals to, generate the electricity, okay? But if we get the chance to use the tidal power plants, then we can generate a huge amount of electricity, right? As the sites are available on the bay, which will be always far away from the load centers, the power generated also requires the transmission cost from one place to from the base towards the load centers, right? And the supply of the power depends upon the timing of the tides. Hence, it is not continuous in nature, right? To solve this process, to solve this problem, double basin pumps are used and pump storage must be made, okay? So, the capital cost of the plant is also very high and the navigation is obstructed in case of tidal energy. Now, coming to the MHD generation. So, what is MHD generation or magneto-hydrodynamic power generation? It is basically converting the energy, the heat energy directly into the electrical energy without using any intermediate mechanical energy conversion process as in case of power generating plants. So, this is the diagram of the MHD generator. You can see the bulb is glowing, and the process used here is we have used two poles, magnetic poles, north and the south, and there is the magnetic electrodes, positive and the negative terminals are placed. By using the electromotive force, the electricity is produced, right? And the source of electrically hot conducting gases are being used to generate the electricity in case of MHD, right? So, the merits and the demerits of the MHD are, it is more reliable as there is no moving part in case of MHD, and in MHD system the efficiency can be as around 50%, right? Less compared to less than 40% of the most efficient steam plant. Steam plants are those are most efficient, they are only providing only 40% of the efficiency, while this MHD, as there is no moving part available in this, so it will provide around 50% of the efficiency. As soon as it is started, it can reach the full power level, right? This is the biggest advantage of the MHD power generation, that it reaches the full power level. Now, the power produced is full of pollution in case of the MHD energy, right? So, it is, although cost is very less, overall cost, operating cost of the MHD energy is very less, and the capital cost of MHD plants, basically there are two types of MHD plants. I will explain in the next lecture. It is comparable as those of the conventional steam plants, okay? So, these are the some of the merits of the MHD energy. Now, coming towards the demerits of the MHD. The MHD system suffers from the reverse flow of the electrons, right, through the conducting fluids around the end of the magnetic field, right. This is the disadvantage, that there must be a short circuit of the electrons, right, whenever the fluid which is a conducting fluid around, which is at the ends of the magnetic field. So, due to that there must be a short circuit, that you can say that there must be a reverse flow of the electrons, right. So, there will be high friction losses in case of MHD energy, and the heat transfer losses will also be taken place in case of MHD energy, and the friction loss may be as high as about 12% of the input. So, these are the two big disadvantages of the MHD energy. Now, coming to the last topic, that is fuel cell. What is a fuel cell over here? The fuel cell is an electromagnetic cell which convert the chemical energy of the fuel. Basically, fuel is a hydrogen of layer and an oxidizing agent, which can be an oxygen obtained from the air, into the electricity using the redox reaction. Okay. In the next lecture, I will discuss what is the redox reaction and how we can generate the energy using the fuel cell, how it is converting directly the electrochemical cell, right, how it is converting basically the chemical energy into the electricity, right. So, fuel cell are basically different from the batteries, which require a continuous source of fuels and oxygen. Oxygen generally used obtained from the air, so as to sustain the chemical reaction. Wherever in a battery, the chemical energy usually comes from the metals, right? And there are ions or oxides that are commonly already present in the battery, except in the flow batteries, right? So these fuel cell can produce the electricity continuously as long as the fuel and the oxygen are supplied to the fuel cell. So this is the fuel cell. You can see here that there are the two anode and the cathode, right? And the electrons are transferred from here to here. The heat is generating. We are giving the hydrogen and the oxygen at the anode and the cathode respectively, and the water is coming out, and with the help of, and heat is also generating, and in this way it will help us to produce the electricity, right? So these are the merits and the demerits of the fuel cell. First of all, it is having a very high efficiency, as around 70%, because it involves the direct conversion process, and it does not involve any thermal process, right? So basically also you can say it is using less mechanical component, so maintenance is obviously very less, and fuel cells takes lots of take very little time to start the operation, right? As soon as we are providing hydrogen and oxygen to the anode and cathode, the process will start, right? So the space also required by the fuel cell power plant is also very less, and the large amount of cooling water is not required in case of fuel cell, just like in conventional steam power plant, right? And they can be installed near the point of location. Wherever it is required, we can install the fuel cell, as it requires very less space, and the best advantage is that it does not make any kind of noise, and they can also be used in the residential areas also. Now the demerits of the fuel cell, the service life is very low, right? And the initial cost is also very little high, right, in case of fuel cells. And the use of fuel cells, the use of fuel cell power is still unsafe, right, due to the explosive nature of the hydrogen and the oxygen. As we all know that these are the hydrogen and the oxygen together can, you know, show the explosive nature. So the use of fuel cell is very unsafe. So installing the fuel cell around the residential area is also not safe, I should say. So the availability of suitable auto catalyst to function efficiently for long duration has also restricted its commercial application, right? And the refilling of auto vehicle is very difficult in case of fuel cells. So I have discussed in this lecture the only the advantage, disadvantage, only a brief introduction about the topic. In the next lectures followed by this lecture, I will give a brief long introduction of the complete detail of the fuel cell or the MHD or the solar energy, how we are getting it, and what are the different type of plants, right? And how we are getting the solar energy, or the how we are obtaining the electricity by using all these renewable energy. So the last one over here is the biomass, how it is introduced, how it is available. See, it is a this is the picture you can see over here, the cycle of the biomass energy, right? And from these are the biomass power plant, and this is we are getting from the trees and plants, we are getting the wood products, and from the wood products, when we are making the wood products, the biomass is obtained, and the biomass, this is used in the biomass power plants, and finally it is releasing the carbon dioxide, which is which is taken by the trees and plants, right? And the cycle goes on, right? So the biomass is basically an organic material which is obtained from the plants and the animals, right? So it is a renewable energy resource. Why? Because we can always grow more trees and crops, and waste will always definitely exist from the trees and the animals, etc. And it does not include any kind of fossil fuel which take millions of years to create, right? So this is very good for biomass. And then when burned, right, so the chemical energy in case of biomass is released as heat, which we can use. So wood waste or the garbage can be burned to produce the steam for making electricity, right, or by using the biomass power plant, right, or to provide the heat to the industries as well as to the homes, right. And burning biomass is not only the way to release it energy, right, it can also be converted into another usable forms, just like methane gas, just like fuels such as ethanol and biodiesel, etc. So biomass plant is a device for the conversion of fermentable organic matter, and particularly cattle dung, into combusting gas and fully matured organic manure, right. So the main source of production of the biogases are cattle dung, right, night soil, poultry, or the piggery droppings, right. So these materials are confined in a place out of contact with oxygen, give rise to a large number of bacteria which converted carbohydrate, proteins, fat into volatile acid and into the carbon dioxide. So while biomass is organic matter derived from plants, algae, animals, etc., right. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of the biomass, that it has a very high cost of obtaining the bioenergy through plantation. The plantation is lesser than cost of obtaining energy from the fossil fuels, right. The plant should ensure a continuous supply of energy due to their continuous growth, and the combustion of biomasses does not cause SO2 air pollution, since the content of sulfur in vegetable is even less than 0.1%, right. So these growth of the biomass consume more carbon dioxide than is released during the combustion process, besides producing the atmosphere, purifying oxygen as a product of photosynthesis process, right. So basically this biomass is a perennial and a low polluting type of energy. All of the byproducts of the biomass are capable of being recycled. Now, as these are the advantages, it has some disadvantage as well. So the accumulation of water in the pipeline and the need to remove it at a periodic intervals is a big disadvantage. Inefficient designing of the gas application, and the seasonal variation in the production of the gas due to the lack of the temperature control and the poor insulation of the plants is also one of the disadvantage of biomass. And on the absolute basis, the cost of the biomass energy is found to be generally large than a coal based plant. So these are the disadvantages of the biomass. So this is all for today's lecture. Thank you.